All right. Well, we'll get started. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining Acadia Center for this special webinar in which we will introduce foundations to our latest resource, which is the Community Energy Vision Action Guide. My name is Krisha Wozni, and I am the Communications Director and the Coordinator of the Public Engagement Initiative at Acadia Center. And I am joined this afternoon by Kathleen Neal and Jeremy McDermott, both of whom were part of the team that developed the Action Guide. Today's webinar will be divided into two parts. The first part will present the Action Guide and demonstrate how it might be used by communities in the Northeast. Then we'll open the floor to discussion about how best to amplify this resource and build programming around it. Kathleen Neal is policy advocate in Acadia Center's Rockport, Maine office, and she will present the Action Guide to you this afternoon. Jeremy is senior advisor for special projects, and he will facilitate the discussion in which we will hear your thoughts after the presentation. If you would like to ask a question during the presentation, please type it into the Q&A box, which you should be able to access at the bottom of your screen. We'll have additional time for questions at the end of the presentation about the Action Guide. After the presentation, those interested in discussing will be moved on to the panel, and from there we can unmute you so you can participate in a discussion about what you've just seen. Now I'll give the floor to Kathleen so you can hear all about the Community Energy Vision Action Guide.
All right. Thank you, Krisha, and thanks to everybody who's joining us today. Acadia Center is really excited to share its latest piece of work, the Community Energy Vision Action Guide. The Action Guide grew out of the series of work Acadia Center has been producing, starting with EnergyVision, to showcase how the Northeast can shift to a clean, consumer-friendly energy system. And we can see that vision here in this slide. There's rooftop solar and wind producing renewable energy. You can see electric vehicles charging and zipping around town. There's energy storage located in efficient homes and businesses. And it all draws on market-ready technologies to produce deep emissions reductions and to maximize economic, environmental, and public health benefits. This slide is from Acadia Center's Community Energy Vision report, which focused on the changes needed to advance strong, sustainable community energy systems. And the series also includes Utility Vision, which provided additional detail for the reforms and opportunities needed at the utility level. All told, the Energy Vision series sets out a pathway for ambitious but achievable advances in 4 key areas. So those are energy efficiency, renewable power, electrification of buildings and transportation, and grid modernization. And together they allow communities to take control of their energy systems and to really reform the way that energy is planned and managed. We're going to spend about half an hour walking through Acadia Center's latest report, the Community Energy Vision Action Guide, and we'll talk about its context, its components, and its potential uses for state and local action across the 7 northeastern states. From there, as Krisha said, we'll transition into more of a discussion about how Acadia Center will use the Action Guide. And this is where we're really eager to hear your questions and your ideas. So if something comes up during the presentation, put it into the Q&A box. Otherwise, we'll talk it all through at the end. So without further ado, let's get to it. As Acadia Center developed the Energy Vision series, it became increasingly clear that communities are the place where the clean energy future happens. Communities can benefit from new energy technologies that offer unprecedented access to affordable, resilient local energy, and they have great capacity to change behavior and really establish new energy norms. Unfortunately, communities are also dependent on what states and state rules allow them to do. And those rules vary widely across the southern Northeast states. At Acadia Center, we believe that communities deserve the freedom to act. Acadia Center prepared the Community Energy Vision Action Guide to explore the changes that are needed to allow communities to fully benefit and participate in the sustainable low emissions energy future and to achieve a modernized energy vision. We're looking for changes that align community energy opportunities with state laws and rules and modernize the outdated rules that are currently blocking community action. And that work of updating those rules and achieving those changes will require community support. The action guide is designed to do a couple of things. It's designed to raise awareness of the existing opportunities and obstacles to community energy action. It's a user-friendly resource that's based on extensive research of the laws and the regulations that govern community energy across the region. And by identifying barriers to community energy, the action guide is designed to inspire advocacy for the changes needed at the state level that expand community level options. So what are we talking about with those options and opportunities? Acadia Center identified 4 categories of actions that local leaders and advocates, and these are folks who are inside and outside of official government roles, actions that these leaders can take to shape their community energy systems. They include how buildings use energy, how energy is generated, delivered, and purchased, how zoning and siting shape clean energy developments, and finally, how residents, businesses, and municipalities pay for it all. The action guide includes a comprehensive list of almost 40 clean energy actions where we determined that communities could have a high degree of control. The action guide includes 3 interlinking sections. There is an overview of the 4 categories of action, a comparison of the availability of those actions across the Northeast states, and finally, a deeper dive into the specific state rules and regulations that govern those actions. Together, these sections will help users determine whether a given action is possible, limited, or prohibited under current state rules. And they offer both the regional context and the state-specific considerations that will help communities figure out how to move forward. When the state rules do allow communities the full freedom to act, communities will really have the complete set of tools they need to embrace a clean energy future. So, how does it work? The action guide uses a simple color coding to give users a clear sense of the status and next steps for each community energy action. Users start by choosing an action and then ask a series of questions. Is the action covered under current state rules? Has it been done before? Is that example replicable? Is there a clear precedent? Those answers help determine where each action stands under current state policy. What we've got is a stoplight-like key that identifies each action as green, yellow, or red. So green indicates that there are no structural barriers to action. Acadia Center identified actions as green when there was clear legislative authorization or a clear precedent for that action. These are the steps that every community in a given state could take, but these actions haven't necessarily been adopted in every community or even in any community. So the green actions taken together are a sort of to-do list for community advocates. Yellow indicates a lack of clarity in the state rules and regulations. Acadia Center identified actions as yellow when there were limitations or considerations that could hinder community progress, or when the research did not show a clear precedent for action. These are the steps that could be possible, but communities really do need to learn more. They may need to work for changes in state rules or laws. The yellow actions are more of a research project. Red is a full stop. Acadia Center identified actions as red when they were clearly prohibited by state laws or rules. These are the steps that are not currently possible, but these areas are ripe for reform. And a red light could inspire communities to roll up their sleeves and engage in state level advocacy. At first, community energy advocates may be most interested in the status of actions in their own state. But the Action Guide's regional matrix provides some broader context. It allows audiences to compare which actions are possible, limited, and prohibited across the region, to see how states stack up on community energy opportunities. And really, we had a few aha moments here, and we'd expect the users to do the same. What you'll see here is that no state stands out as entirely permissive or restrictive. There's not a column of green or red for any state. And the balance of green and red in each column may be surprising. States that are widely acknowledged as lagging in the uptake of clean energy actions don't necessarily lack for community opportunities. That may suggest that communities are unaware of their options or that they're unsure of how to take action toward their clean energy goals. You'll also note that fewer than a third of the actions that Acadia Center researched and documented have the same status across all 7 states. And no action was prohibited across the board. There's no row of red across any row in the matrix. The bottom line is that communities have a variety of options under current law and plenty of opportunities to expand those options and push for reform. We're going to walk through one of those opportunities today, and it's really the same process for all of the actions covered in the guide. But in the buildings section, you'll see that one possible action is to require new construction to be EV ready. The regional matrix shows that this is prohibited in Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. It's limited in New Hampshire, and it's permitted in New York and Vermont. What does it mean to be EV ready? The Action Guide explains that Acadia Center was really asking whether state rules allow cities and towns to require building code provisions, like wiring requirements, for example, that would make it easier, more efficient, and more affordable to install electric vehicle charging infrastructure in new construction or in substantially renovated buildings. For each state, the Action Guide then goes deeper to tell users what limits or supports their community's action. So where the action is prohibited, users learn exactly what stands in the way. In Maine, the state energy code does not require EV readiness, and municipalities are not allowed to adopt more stringent requirements. There are similar hurdles in Massachusetts and in Rhode Island. When an action is possible but limited, users learn what considerations could constrain their efforts. So in New Hampshire, nothing prohibits communities from requiring new construction to be EV ready. And the state rules do seem to open the door to this action by allowing municipalities to add regulations to the energy code as long as they don't relax the standards. But Acadia Center could not find a precedent for this requirement, so there's a real lack of clarity here. The yellow signal indicates that communities need to learn more before attempting this action. Requiring new construction to be EV ready could be as simple as finding the right language, but it could also open a can of worms that invites real pushback. Where the action is permitted in New York and Vermont, advocates will not face those challenges. And the action guide lets users know where the authority for this action comes from. It also provides links to successful community action. So New York's building code requires that certain new parking facilities are EV ready, and Vermont's stretch code requires a certain number of EV charging spaces in multifamily and commercial developments. That is just one of the many actions covered in the action guide. That's how it works. Users can walk through the status and considerations for each of those actions. And what's really interesting is even if the action is prohibited in their state, they can see where and how it has been accomplished. It's a combination of accurate, actionable information and some inspiration for advocacy. Acadia Center hopes that the action guide can demonstrate how crucial it is to align community action with state level reforms. And by combining the regional context for community energy actions with the state specific information for moving forward, the action guide can raise awareness of which actions can be taken now and build support for updating the rules and processes that govern the energy system. We wouldn't be surprised if the action guide sparked a little friendly competition between states, because community energy advocates will realize that their neighbors may have a different slate of available options. Acadia Center's plans for the action guide include widespread distribution to community and state level stakeholders, a series of state-specific webinars that introduce users to the resource, and outreach to spark coalition work on state-level reforms that will benefit communities. Acadia Center is seeking impact, and your ideas are welcome as we build out this project.